Good morning. Welcome to the Brew. It's Friday. That means I've got the gals, Paulina and Molly, on the show today. 3 topics in 2025, just starting out the year. So, the U.S. Surgeon General putting a little warning sticker on alcohol. We'll talk about that. Could inflation come roaring back with the talk of tariffs in the Trump administration? And the dog of the market in 2024. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. We're going to talk about it after the bell.
New year, new music. Here we go.
Yeah. I'm going to go get my Rip Wheeler hat. I forgot. I got it in the other room. We're going to have to do this show, gals, with cowboy hats on one of these times.
Yes, we do. No, chaps.
Well, hello. Leave it to Mal to take it to the next level.
Not brought to you. Not brought to
you by whatever.
Please sponsor us. We love you.
Hello, Paulina. How are you?
I'm doing great.
You've got the big box because you're the important one here. Molly and I have the small box. We're not as important. Although Molly's more important than me, so I shouldn't be here with the pretty girls. Anyway, I know we have time constraints, so you're going to get bad Lex today on the first one. I'm going to let you go. It's the U.S. Surgeon General's new warning about alcohol, as if it's going to matter. But we're gonna talk about it. Let's hear it.
If I do recall, bootlegging was really great for the alcohol industry.
It was pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Prohibition, sorry.
Anyhow, yeah, prohibition, right. Go ahead, Paulina. So what's going on with the new thing that's going to help us prevent ourselves from getting cancer because everyone's going to quit drinking now just because the label's there? Sorry.
Right. Exactly. So we had recently the U.S. Surgeon General. He came out and he issued an advisory to start out the year, funny enough. And he highlighted the link between alcohol consumption and cancer risk. And what he said was alcohol is identified as one of the leading causes of cancer in the U.S. after tobacco and obesity. And he is advising to put an advisory label, kind of like we have with the tobacco labels, and how there's a link to cancer and alcohol. And why is this important to the markets? Well, after the announcement came out, we saw a bunch of alcohol stocks decline. Anheuser-Busch fell, Diageo, Brown-Forman, Molson Coors, Constellation Brands. Not a major sell-off, but it was a noticeable sell-off in some of these major alcohol names.
Interesting. So I am a buyer of anything that sells off based on this stupid label. Sorry, just saying. No, if there's other things at play here, which I will mention in a second, then it could be a different story. But I don't think the label is going to prevent people from enjoying their favorite beverage, right? Especially those who can moderate, a little bit. I think.
Yeah. I would agree with that because right after the announcement, yes, we did see an immediate sell-off in the stocks. Again, not major, but then they recovered because right now there still is a lot of uncertainty around what these potential policy changes could mean. Of course, as we have the incoming Trump administration, I'm sure we might have a whole change in a Surgeon General as well. So that might change things again.
Right. So you said the stocks that fell were Anheuser-Busch, Diageo, Constellation. Was there another one I missed?
Molson Coors was another one. Sure. Brown-Forman. These are all companies that either manufacture beers or liquors, alcohol, any sort of.
Gallo public? They're huge. I don't know if they're public though. That's my problem. Is Gallo? I'm looking. Stay with me on this one. Is it Gallo Brothers? You know what I'm talking about, right?
What is it called?
Gallo. I think you guys look like I have 2 heads over here. You ever heard of Gallo?
It's possible. Maybe it's.
No, it's not.
No.
They're huge. They're massive. Oh, they're not. They're not public anyway. So they didn't fall. Um, so do you guys? Are you guys on my page here with this one? Do you think that this is going to have a big deal, big effect? I mean, what? Who cares?
Well, I'm in California, so let me talk on this subject.
Okay, go ahead,
All right.
misregulated. You're misregulated.
Okay, so alcohol is a vasodilator. It used to be used as a delivery system. So you can actually add healthy tonics to your vodka, and it can actually be really great for you. So recipes for the skin cleaning like gua sha. So let me just give it to you quickly. So I think you'll see a lot of as far as stocks go, the counterweight would be health and wellness.
Yeah.
So
That's
but that
interesting, Mom.
recipe, yeah, we're gonna do sodium bicarbonate, MSM, fossil shell flour, diatomaceous earth, magnesium chloride, living silica, crystal Himalayan sea salt in your vodka. Take shots of that. You'll feel good in the morning.
Wow, you're nutty, by the way. You are just crazy. So what would have to happen to implement these new warning labels? Does it have to go through an act of God in Congress, or what? Do you know?
Yeah, it's something along those lines. Obviously, with this announcement, nothing is going to change immediately. In order to implement these new warning labels, it would require congressional action, and the labels, they would have to go through different, regulatory scrutiny. And the current labels, they have remained unchanged since 1988. So it would be something very new that we haven't done in a while.
Wait, what is on the label now? I think there's a label now, isn't there? Or am I missing it? Is that not true?
There might be something around, I don't remember, but something around like pregnancy, don't consume if you're pregnant or like that, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
So I mean, we should look at cigarettes. So cigarettes, when the labels went on in the 1966 and 1970s, U.S. roughly saw a 2% decline in per capita consumption. And then you saw graphic warning labels, the giant ones that went on in the 90s and 2000s, and average 10 to 14% reduction. So you'll see something, but I think pretty much everyone knows that alcohol is probably not the best thing for you. And I don't think we don't have doctors backing him in congressional hearings like we did cigarettes.
So here's what the label says. Again, this ChatGPT is unbelievable.
Check out Claude. Anthropic's Claude. Now I'm not crazy.
Well, I know there's going to be better ones too, but right now I'm deep into this one because I know how to use it. According to the Surgeon General, women should not drink alcoholic beverages during pregnancy because of the risk of birth defects. That's what happened to me. My mom drank. So, number 2, consumption of alcoholic beverages impairs your ability to drive a car or operate machinery and may cause health problems. My guess is, why don't they just make a number 3? And it's been linked to cancer or whatever they're going to say. Can we do that? Make it easy? Anyone?
So say it again. Like,
well, no, there's a 1, government warning 1, and there's a 2. 1's on birth defects. 2 is on your ability to drive a car or operate machinery. And why don't we have 3 just say, it's maybe linked to cancer. Drink at your own risk.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds logical. Maybe
logical.
Why don't we just knock it down to 3 emojis?
I would like that too.
Because when you drink, you don't read. So that makes sense.
I don't want to beat this one up too much, but I think, this is just yada yada to me. But I will say this. Interestingly, my son works in the alcohol business. He sells booze and is a distributor, a very large one he works for. And what he's told me is that the drinking habits of the younger people has changed a good bit. There's far less alcohol consumption than there used to be. And I don't know what that's attributed to. It could be vaping. It could be marijuana was legalized. I don't know.
Right.
But they've definitely seen at least that demographic, the millennials or whatever that age level is, has definitely seen a reduction in alcohol consumption.
Well, this is interesting, and I wonder if this is a component. Again, we'll move on. We have really neat subjects to talk about. But with health insurance, it's headed towards socializing health insurance. It is still expensive for the average American with inflation, et cetera. And so people are starting to have to take health in their own hands.
Mhm.
And they are also they're so impacted. When we saw Polyev talk about, just on the Canadian front, we're going to switch that in a second, how hard these generations are working. And you cannot hold down 3 jobs and drink. You just can't keep up with your rent. So I'm wondering if this compounding impact on them is causing them to just supercharge their physical systems.
That's a good point.
And alcohol is taking a hit.
Yep, could be. Very good points. Okay, we're going to move along. But I did tell my doctor when he asked me how many drinks I have a week, I said 42. He said, he looked at me, he goes, I might be light. I don't know. It could be light. Because they always add more drinks. Everyone lies to the doctor. They say, I have 3 drinks a week. He's like, yeah, okay. Multiply that by 3. When you multiply by 3, you got like 126 or something like that for me. Yeah. So that seems like a lot.
I'll have if you go travel with Lex, you must drink. You must try whatever wine he hands you, you drink. But I actually don't drink. And I have like probably half a Guinness probably every 6 months. But when I go with Lex, I will drink whatever he hands me. That's all I know.
It's always a red wine. It could be a white wine, but it's mostly a red wine. Anywho, speaking of expensive things, let's move to the inflation outlook for 2025 under what everyone's saying could be the Trump tariffs. Now, what's going on there, Paul? I know that tariffs probably can be inflationary, but we'll break it down. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, so it's not really news here. We have talked about the threats that with the new Trump administration, he has said that he would impose a 25% imports on goods coming from Mexico, Canada, also a 10% tariff on Chinese imports that would potentially go into effect when he's inaugurated January 20th. And Wall Street is concerned around how this would impact consumer companies, not only consumer companies, but any company that's linked to these countries. Right. For example, there's a lot of electronics or different, goods that are, coming in from these countries. And if we have to impose a higher tariff on them, that higher price has to be passed on to the consumer. Mm-hmm. And that's where the inflation could come from. So that's the concern around, how, for example, electronics like laptops, tablets, you could see significant price hikes if there are tariffs imposed by, Best Buy, for example, who gets a lot of their electronics from China or, mm-hmm. So forth. So that's the concern here.
Go ahead, Mal.
What do you think of trade wars that are happening, and what's your take on that, Lex?
On this particular
tariff wars? Yeah.
Oh, tariff wars. Look, here's the deal. He's trying to make a statement, right? He's trying to make a major statement against this particular group of countries. And my feeling is that he thinks that there's been a massive unfairness of trade between the U.S. and these 3, major countries that he's going to impose this tariff. So I think he's sending a signal that, hey, I'm gonna slap you in the face if you don't behave, is the kind of thing, right? He knows this is inflationary potentially, right, and probably strong potentially. I think he knows that. Does it ever land at 25% and 10%? Who knows? I'm not sure yet. But I think, is there any way around it, Paulina? Is there any way around the inflation part? I don't think so, right? What's the side door exit for people that everything is actually made in the States now and people just buy it here and forget about it? Not going to happen.
Right. That's the first thing that comes to mind. But so his one of his main initiatives is reshoring, bringing manufacturing away from abroad and bringing it back to the U.S. But it's expensive to make things here. But maybe that could be inflationary in the beginning, but over time it would get better. I think if that were the case, it would get worse before it would get better. So, but at the end of the day, that's what reduces inflation by bringing manufacturing to the U.S. And making things here. I think that's how we ultimately.
I really agree with that, Paulina. So in the interim, it would be high inflation, an inflationary impact, but long term, it would be really good for the United States. And also it's partnering its allies. And so you have to look at the trade deficit and surpluses. So according to PBD, it's 1.1 trillion deficit for the U.S. And again, those numbers are probably fluctuated. And then China has 820 billion surplus. And so that means that we are doing business with everyone, and they aren't doing as much business with us. So that is not an equal handshake. So as far as NAFTA goes, is it free trade or is it fair trade? And if you look at steel, it's really interesting. So Adam Smith was absolutely against tariffs, but he did say that, you can defend in national security. So it's a tool to be used as far as negotiating cross countries. So if you look at steel, we actually didn't want Chinese steel in here because the structure of it was not as strong. And so what occurred, and this is again how you use tariffs as far as securing the country. China then negotiated with Canada, and then we bought Chinese steel from Canada, and so got it anyway. So right now, Polyev, I agree that he it will they're already being crippled. So they have been hit the most out of the G7 in the last 9 years since Trudeau, and big news with Trudeau resigning. And so these tariffs will just cripple them more, and they are our allies. But this is used as a negotiating power, saying, if you want to do business with China, that's great, but we're going to penalize you at this point. So why don't you just shake our hands, buy steel from us again? I mean, top 15 steel companies are over in Asia. It should be U.S. American steel. That's what we used to be back in the Carnegies. So I think
that's a good analysis, Mo. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, I think these are probably good. I don't think Canada's going to be hit. It's just used as a tool, as a negotiating tool to switch where they shop. And that's it. And so do business with us, because and then what that will happen is, Paulina is saying, is that in the long term, things will come back to the US and we will have fair trade across Canada and Mexico. And we will start to strengthen ourselves again. And we are a superpower that has not tried to clobber everyone in the world. And we have, with a 1.1 trillion deficit, we have been supporting the world. So we are good guys, I believe. And it's I think, we'd do a good job if we brought our business back and we brought the help.
Wrap myself in the American flag, for God's sakes, after all that.
Thank you.
Jeez. That's awesome. What do you think, Paulina? It's just unreal.
Yeah, I think Molly explained that really eloquently. I think right now the scope of these tariffs, they're uncertain. They could be used as a negotiating tactic, like Molly said. Of course, there are two sides of every coin, and people, in response to that, they're pointing out what these tariffs could mean for the U.S. economy. Some are saying that it could impact GDP, economic growth. But I think our economy is very resilient, and that if there is any sort of impact, it would be minimal. I think that in terms of this scenario, it's good to take more of a long-term view to see how it could improve the economy and the consumer health over time.
Right.
Absolutely agree. And thanks for bringing that topic up, Paulina. These are great.
Yeah, that's a dang duty. I like that one. Okay, let's move along. Sorry. The dog of 2024, the stock dog. What stock was the biggest dog? I'm
Drum
shocked.
roll.
I think I'm
Drum
shocked.
roll.
Go, Paulina.
Intel. It was one of the worst performing stocks in 2024. It fell roughly 50 to 60%.
God.
It declined from $50 at the start of 2024 to around $25 by the end of the year. So that's roughly a 50 to 60% drop. And throughout the year, we just saw revenue, quarter after quarter wasn't really doing anything. In response, the company tried to reduce costs to help improve those margins, primarily by reducing their headcount by 15%. They also suspended the dividend. In the fourth quarter, they announced that. Why is this happening? I think is the first question. Well, there's a lot of competition from other companies in the space like AMD and NVIDIA. So these they're more innovative. They're the new, fresh, hot AI competitors, and Intel just hasn't been able to innovate and keep up with their product rollouts.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they haven't been meeting production goals.
Right.
So there's a lot of layers to why they're performing.
Interesting. I've got a good buddy who retired from Intel. He was with them from out of college, and he's retired. And I know he's got a lot of Intel stock. I mean, I'm assuming he does.
Does he have Intel on Intel?
I think he's got Intel on Intel. I mean, he's got to be very sad if he's got if he had a lot of net worth tied up in Intel side. I just looked at the chart. Crazy chart. It was. Yeah. Can I share a screen on this thing?
Let's do it.
Would that be nutty?
Yeah, no, let's do it. Before. I want to see. Let's see the plummet, because when you look at Intel, you've got to look at ARM. So what's happening in the industry?
Did I do this right? I did it.
There you go.
All right, Paulina, here's a 1 year thingamajiggy, a chart. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you look over here on my right side here, my left side, sorry. Oh, you can see my cursor now, right? You're right around 50 is what you said, right? Right there.
Yeah.
Okay. That was back, right in late January, let's call it. And look where we are now. Holy camole, around $19.50.
Yeah.
This is a catastrophe graph.
Lex, now look at ARM, ARM.
ARM it is, ARM. Would you look at that? There's this one day. Never mind.
Literally the opposite stock.
Yeah. So look at this is a year. Look where this is, 78-ish, right? Give or take. It's up at 150.
So what is happening here? So when you look at Intel with ARM, so ARM, 60% of their revenues are coming from royalties, and 40% are coming from licensing fees. And so what they do is they just have the architecture of these chips. And when the neat thing about Intel was that when they began, they have huge compute power, and what's happening in the server industry is that actually forget this. I'll get to that in a second.
Yep.
Look at companies like Apple. So they've extended their contract until 2040 with ARM. And why is that? So it's getting really expensive to buy from Intel. So what they're doing is they're having these little offices inside of Apple that are trying to build their own chips. You see Tesla building their own chips as well. So they aren't big inside these HQs. So they need ARM. They take ARM, and ARM has these huge architectural, infrastructure and support and headcount, and so it makes it cheaper for companies like Apple to build their own internal chips. And so that's why ARM is taking the business away from Intel, because it's allowing all these other companies to compete with Intel. Then you look at, RISC-V as a competitor. They require a little bit less for smaller, not watt heavy components. But the x86 on Intel is, I think, starting to go away. I'll just read you a couple of things. x86 uses more power than alternatives like ARM. So that's a big deal. So ARM chips offer, I'll just say this.
Yep, go.
Better performance per watts. Companies can customize ARM designs for their needs. ARM licensing is often cheaper than buying Intel chips. Mobile cloud computing growth favors ARM's efficiency. So that's exactly what I said. And then, so also when you look in the server area, AWS, which is Amazon servers, it used to be, you think of your cell phone, this thing used to fit in a giant, huge room. Now it's in this tiny little thing in your back pocket. And so Intel used to power those big components, but now you can actually, servers are getting they're basically getting in like small buckets as they go out. And so it's easy if you can kind of lean on ARM and these individual companies to start building those, decentralized servers and how the tech industry is changing.
So what you're saying, Mal, that Intel in doggy years has really old, shitty technology. Essentially.
Well, yeah.
I mean, think
think
about it.
things are getting smaller and Intel's big.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, but it's true. I had someone say that to me on a call just before our show.
yeah.
They're comparing two technologies, and that's what the person said. Is basically it's like doggy years. That technology's so old, and it's exacerbated in technology by a factor. Quite frankly, because things are so fast in terms of development nowadays with technology. So Intel is legacy.
Yeah.
No, freaking what?
Yeah, I would say legacy is the best way to put it. I would say, like, all in all, this is the consequence of not being able to keep up with the competition, not being able to quickly transition to more advanced semiconductor manufacturing. And yeah, Intel has been left behind by the competition that's spending and making sure that they're ahead of the curve when it comes to these AI related build outs.
Right. I agree. Interesting. Well, good. Yeah, good. Sorry, Ma.
Well, it ties into the whole tariff conversation. So you saw the chip shortages, and 25% of tariffs on Chinese semiconductor imports to U.S. So I think there are, when you look at the tariffs, you see ARM expanding. I think they have now a subsidiary in China trying to combat, because I think 90% of chips are made in Asia. Is that correct? Possibly. So yeah, so you really have to start to, hopefully we'll see that chip production come back into the US, because it's strange. How does World War III look? Is it monetary policy? Is it tech? So are there back doors? I mean, if you aren't in agreement, of course we want the whole world to get along, but if you aren't in agreement with other countries and they're producing the infrastructure of all of your tech, which runs the world, are there back doors built into that you need to be concerned about? I think this is a really important topic, and keeping it. How do you do the stock play? You really want to see who's cutting deals with ARM, and that'll relay out to outside of the sector. So anyone creating efficiency in their chip production, like Apple, that's a upward tick that you can foresee ahead of way before that stock moves. You can see what they're doing, and then also keep an eye on the regulation as far as import-export taxes on those.
Okay, last question. We got to go for each of you. This is not investment advice. Are you bullish or bearish on Intel for 2025? Any thoughts?
Bearish.
Okay, you're still bearish.
Bearish, and I'm keeping an eye on ARM for sure.
Okay, and Paulina, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's going to be another tough year for Intel.
Really?
I think their growth, their revenue growth might be pretty sluggish, unless they have in their next earning call, if they don't have anything like, we're doing a huge transformation, we're getting rid of these people, we're bringing in these people, and like there has to be some sort of renewed confidence in the management team or something needs to happen. But
more acquisitions, like maybe they're acquiring someone in the new tech. So
yeah, that could be some sort of change in strategy.
Agreed. I agree with Paulina. What about you, Lex?
Well, I mean, now I was going to say I'm going to be bullish, but now I feel bad because I want to be part of the party too. I want to be.
You have loyalties to your buddy.
I have loyalties. Oh, by the way, this is one of our, when I was on the trading floor, this was one of my firm's stocks that we were specialists in, was Intel.
You're kidding me.
No, swear to God. So we were specialists in this on the option side, not on the stock side, on the equity side, but on the option side in Chicago. So we traded this daily, this stock. We made all the markets in it.
But and you had Google. That was when Intel was a beast.
Oh yeah, it was one of the best trading stocks that was around. Probably not a $19 stock, wouldn't be so fun anymore. But I think if you pin me to the wall, I'd say you're probably right. I think it is a bearish thing for them unless they can reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they have such a massive amount of backpack weight on their backs from old legacy stuff. And just they probably have infrastructure. Just think about that, how old this company is, how long it's been around, and how much crap is there. I don't know.
And then my mentality of the guys that run it, you know, they're kind of, you have to really change how you look at tech completely.
Yeah.
So you really do have to get new management probably in there that has historical, you know, their CV is from that world, so that their minds are pointed.
Yep.
Maybe some young 20-year-old. Who
there
knows?
you go. Get Paulina in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely mount a turnaround at
All right, ladies, great show. You guys
All right,
are on. I
everyone.
mean, you guys got a lot of rest or something over the holidays. You guys were killing it today.
Am I tan?
You are kind of tan, Mal.
What? Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I put the blush on today just because I know Molly's gonna be tan. I gotta keep up. Yeah. All right, great show, guys. Good to see you,
All right,
Paulina.
everyone. Good
Have
to
a
see
great
you,
weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Awesome.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.